Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chris Stollings. You know me here on YouTube as MarauderX, and as always, I'm your host for Operation Recap. We take some of the stories from OperationRainfall.com and throw them here at you on YouTube and see what happens. It's a thing that I do. I don't know why. I'm crazy. So starting off this week, we've got a couple of stories, interesting ones that I'm kind of following, a little different from the norm. First off, the story, A Link Between Worlds trailer hides a musical surprise. Now, this is actually something that Nintendo's done a lot. So if you're a fan of Nintendo from way back in the day, they have a habit of taking music and flipping it or speeding it up or just slightly changing it and reusing it for things. And they're doing this with a Link Between Worlds from A Link to the Past. So if you played that game, you're going to notice some minor weird musical tweaks. Things played in reverse, that sort of thing. So, again, not something new that Nintendo's done, but just to give you an idea of why this is kind of news. Nintendo's done this several times, most notably with the Zelda series, but a couple of things that stand out. Peach's final smash in slow motion is the Warp Zone music from Super Mario Bros. 3 slowed down. The probably most noticeable and most recognizable one, the Famicom Disk System startup tune, is the same as the GameCube startup, just the Famicom is slowed down a lot to be the GameCube. So another one is the Mario 3 Warp Whistle theme in Ocarina of Time, that sort of thing. So I'm sitting here looking at this list because I'm like, really, that was one of them? Okay. So that's actually kind of a big deal, especially if you were a fan of Zelda, and it's going to be a little bit of nostalgia, a kick to the face. So check that out. We've got the article about what the exact tune is. I couldn't hear it, but I'm also kind of tone deaf. Music doesn't really click for me, so I couldn't quite understand, like, maybe? But for those of you people who aren't tone deaf, go check it out. It's a very interesting little read, and there's a lot of history with Nintendo doing this sort of thing. Next up, story-wise, this one's really, really serious. Except maybe not. I don't know. So the Australian government has a classification board for entertainment, movies, TV, video games. It is a government-run ratings board, whereas in the US we have the ESRB, which is a completely voluntary system set up by the gaming industry itself, and then you have the MPAA that does movies in the same way. It's all voluntary. That way the government doesn't have to step in. Australia is very different. Australia, it is government controlled. Just recently they announced that they are going to have a 18 plus category. They never had one of these before, so anything that would have been too much for their 15 rating scale would have just been restricted or even refused classification. There were several games that were refused classification, and if they don't get classified, they don't get to be sold in Australia. But now that they have got this new rating scale, this addition to the scale, 12 games are going to be reclassified, or at least re-reviewed, to see if they would fall under this new 18 plus category. Killer is Dead, Alien Rage, Blacklist, Deadly Premonition, Company of Heroes 2, God Mode, Borderlands 2 add-ons, Fuse, Deadpool, Walking Dead, Gears of War Judgment, and Walking Dead Survival Instinct. Several games that might be pushed to the 18. Now, it's not really a big deal because a lot of those are actually listed as mature here in the US, meaning if you're not 18, you shouldn't be able to buy it. It's not legally binding. It's not, say, something like the pornography industry or cigarettes, where there is an active government restriction on it, stating that if you are below this age and if someone sells it to you, that person is legally responsible and they will be held responsible for the sale to a minor. It's because it is a voluntary board. It's all just suggestive. It's meant to try to inform parents. So I'm kind of waiting to see what happens with this with Australia. They've always been very, very restrictive of their games, and I'm not entirely sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I know there's going to be people on either side because it is a government-regulated board here. So there's going to be a lot of people saying, no, government's bad, no, government's good. I'm not going to get into the politics of that. I'm just wondering how this is going to affect the industry in Australia in the long run now that there's a new rating system, and the fact that they are already going to re-review some games to see if they need to fit that new mold. So stay tuned for this one. It's a very interesting little system, and it could be a very good or very bad story, especially if you're one of our Australian readers. I would love if any of the Australian readers or viewers put a comment on this video to let us know your thoughts, because you're the ones having to deal with it. Whereas I'm here in the U.S. and I have to deal with the ESRB, so apples and oranges, really. So, and last story. This one's not really a story because I don't really talk about this a lot. We have a review of Sonic Lost World on our page. The reason I don't really talk about reviews, I don't talk about any of the staff related, I talk about the news related. So any of the editorials, the reviews, opinion pieces, I don't really bring into to recap. But this one I'm bringing in for a very specific reason. It's because Sonic Lost World has been a very controversial game in terms of reviews. GameSpot, IGN, several other major outlets that have done reviews have generally panned this game, giving it very low scores, very low remarks, not much to say positive about the game. Our review is a little different. Jonathan Higgins, one of the bigwigs of Rainfall, one of my bosses, I'm going to love that. He did the review on this one, and I read his review, and I've seen the video reviews from the other major sites, and I've seen the comments. That's really the story here, is the comments. A lot of the comments on IGN GameSpot, people screaming that the people reviewing this game did not actually take the time to learn how to play the game, and because you're not playing the game correctly, you're punishing the game. Now that's something that I can kind of see, but it's a Sonic game, which is I can kind of see both sides of this, and this is actually going to be my question for all of you guys today. It's a Sonic game, so like a Mario game, you would expect fairly simplistic controls, fairly simplistic physics, fairly uniform. You would just accept the same from Sonic, because they've been around about, close to the same time. So if this one has a drastic learning curve, is it the reviewer's fault for not expecting this to be as easy to pick up as other Sonic games? Or are fans of Sonic saying that you need to just give it more time detrimental because if it's not something you can just pick up and play as easily, should we hold it to that standard? Is basically kind of what I'm saying. So check out the review that we've got. Check out the reviews from IGN and all that, and the comments. Just specifically check the comments. I want to. My big thing is this just a rabid fan base attacking negative reviews and praising positive reviews, or is it a case of reviewers just not stepping up? I'm curious. I really am. I was a huge fan of Sonic the Hedgehog back in the day. Not so much of a fan of his 3D escapades. After Sonic Adventure, I kind of lost a lot of interest. But Sonic Lost World did kind of catch my eye, and I'm kind of curious as to, is the hate justified, or is the game not quite as up to par as it should be? So that's my question to you guys. Check out the reviews. Check out some gameplay footage of it. We've got some trailers of it on our channel and whatnot. Go check it out. Give me your opinions on it, because Sonic Lost World, I'm also still kind of biased about Sega, so I kind of want to know what people have to say about this one. But that has been recap for this week. I will catch you guys next week on Saturday as regularly, instead of this Sunday that I'm putting this up now. So I will catch you guys later. Till then, later everyone.